This week, we're going to focus on the following guided question. How did the physical characteristics of the 13 colonies influence where people settled and their way of life? In this video, we're going to focus on where people settled and why they settled there. So, as you learned last week, ships carrying English colonists sailed across the Atlantic Ocean to establish colonies in North America. As more people from England and other European countries settled in this area, it became known as the 13 colonies. It's important also to know that during the same time, just south of the 13 colonies, European countries sent colonists to settle islands in the Caribbean Sea. This area was known as the West Indies. England's colonies in the West Indies included present-day Bahamas and Jamaica. England and other European countries profited from sugar grown on plantations in this region, which they exported or sent on ships all around the world. But back to the 13 colonies, since that's where the United States got its start. So this map shows us where the early colonists settled when the 13 colonies were established. What do you notice about where people settled first? So in order to make sense of this map, let's take a closer look at the key. In the red, we see that before the 1660s, the earliest colonists were settled just off of the coast of the Atlantic Ocean in places like Jamestown, Boston, and New York City. In the yellow, we'll see that colonies expanded further south into Charleston and Savannah and a bit more inland to places like Philadelphia. So what do you notice about where people settled first? Well, hopefully you see that people settled along the coast of the Atlantic Ocean. But why settle on the coast? Aren't there stuff like hurricanes and dangers? Well, first, the Atlantic coast has a wide range of natural harbors. Natural harbors are a place along a shoreline where ships can anchor safely and unload supplies. This was important for the new colonists because they depended on trade with England for supplies, and everything went by ship back then. There was no Walmart to buy what they needed. Shipping was also key to the colonial economy to profit off of raw materials that they made, but also to get the manufactured goods that they needed. We'll learn about the colonial economy in more detail later. In addition, colonists settled near bodies of water for survival, including fishing, but also freshwater sources for drinking and farming. So, for all of those reasons, these port cities became centers for trade in the 13 colonies because they gave people access to markets for goods that they needed. So, over time, the population in these port cities grew. These cities are still important centers for trade today, like New York City and Philadelphia. So, besides the Atlantic Ocean, other important bodies of water for trade in the 13 colonies included the Great Lakes there in red, the Mississippi River in blue, the St. Lawrence River in purple, and the Hudson River in orange. Now, you'll also notice that the 13 colonies did not expand very far to the west at first. This is because the Appalachian Mountains formed a natural barrier that proved difficult to cross with limited technology. So now that you've seen some of the physical characteristics of where people settled, let's look at the different colonies that were established. These 13 colonies are grouped into 3 subregions: the New England colonies, the Middle colonies, and the Southern colonies. Each of these regions contained colonies that have common characteristics with each other. The New England colonies include New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Connecticut. Now, you'll have to remember the names of the colonies in each of these regions, and one way our brain remembers things is through mnemonic devices, or a trick using the first letter of each word. So for New England, the trick that you can use to remember the names is by new members really connect. All right, moving on to the middle colonies. They include New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware. And your trick to remember it is 2 new for the 2 news, puppy dogs. The southern colonies include Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. And the way I like to remember them is that they're all girls' names, right? Mary for Maryland, she's the Catholic one. It was founded by Catholics. Virginia, she's the girl that's a gold digger. She was founded in Jamestown, right, to find gold, but they never found any. The Carolinas, they're like the twins. And then Georgia was founded for debtors. So let's recap what you learned in this video. First, colonies were settled off the Atlantic coast, and natural harbors provided access to trade. Then you learned that port cities such as New York City, Boston, and Charleston developed as a result. And we know that geographic features such as the Appalachian Mountains and other bodies of water influenced settlement or where people chose to live. And then we know that 13 colonies were divided into 3 subregions, each having common characteristics, the New England, Middle, and Southern colonies. And we'll learn more about those specific characteristics, including their geography and their economy, in your next lesson.